Well, it's time for our presentation of our AWCSB Member of the Year. Monica, our board member, is our choice this year. Monica's been on the board for 4 years, and she's using her expertise in marketing and design to polish up our image. You've probably seen her visuals. She creates the display ads that the Independent so generously gives us the space for. For our Women of Achievement Award, she does a lot. She creates the print program, signage, marketing materials, the sponsorship kits. So we've really benefited from Monica's talents and expertise these last 4 years on the board, and we're really happy to honor her here tonight. Carolyn, our past president membership chair, says Monica's graphics have polished our professional image, and she often encourages us to be more bold, and I like bold. So congratulations, Monica.
Congratulations. Happy for you.
Yay, Monica.
Well, hi, thank you. Thank you so much. This is an awesome honor. It makes me chuckle to think that 4 years ago, when I first joined AWC as a member and I met with then President Lisa Engel for a coffee, just a coffee to see where I could volunteer and contribute my skills. Lo and behold, I didn't know that Lisa had an alternative path for me in mind. And the next thing I knew, I've been on the board ever since. So I am proud to be a part of this organization, but it would mean nothing if it wasn't for the wonderful women that I have met and this amazing board that I'm so fortunate to work with. We're all on a journey of growing, learning, and discovering professionally and personally, and supporting and being supported by the women of AWC really is an honor. Be the change you wish to see in the world. I'm inspired and motivated to volunteer despite it not always being convenient. And that's a quote by Gandhi. And for my 20-year motto, it is turn despair into action. And it really does make a difference when you believe you can make a difference. So cheers.
Welcome to our AWCSB Holiday Fireside Chat with Marianne Partridge, Editor-in-Chief and co-founder, and Brandy Rivera, publisher of the Santa Barbara Independent. We are going to be talking with them for a while. If you have questions, again, post them in the chat box and we'll get to them. If you want to turn your camera off, this is a great time to do it as well. Cozy up for this fireside chat. So the Santa Barbara Independent is the leading source for news, the arts and entertainment and lifestyle coverage in the greater Santa Barbara area. The first issue was published on Thanksgiving Day in 1986. Today, we're taking you behind the scenes of our beloved community newspaper to find out how these accomplished women got to where they are today and to hear about the challenges and triumphs of delivering quality journalism during a global pandemic and in a time when fake news and information seems to be trending a lot on social media. So you may or may not be surprised to learn that there's a strong female energy that's leading this organization that goes beyond Marianne and Brandy, as women hold many of the key leadership roles here at the Independent. So let me do quick bios and then we'll ask them some questions. Marianne Partridge is the editor-in-chief and co-founder of the Santa Barbara Independent. She began her career as a secretary at the original Saturday Evening Post and went on to become editor of the Village Voice, executive editor of Look magazine, and senior producer, our senior editor, that is, the first female editor of Rolling Stone magazine, where she also served as bureau chief in New York and Los Angeles. Brandy Rivera came to Santa Barbara by way of UCSB. She started working at the Independent in 2008. She served as the company's CFO business manager, and in 2017 became the Independent's first female publisher. And I heard around the time Brandy took on the role of publisher, she was also pregnant and completing her MBA. So this woman can take on a lot. Welcome, Marianne and Brandy. So let's start by asking you, what is the typical day at the office like, or your virtual office now? What do you do from day to day? Marianne? Oh, you're still muted.
Muted.
There we go.
Oh, I should be unmuted now. My day is, it varies, but I am online checking emails early, and then I make breakfast, and then I wander into the living room. And it depends on what's going on every day, but I try to keep in touch with all the writers at the paper and keeping clear schedules of what they're doing, and when all the different meetings, we have a bunch of different meetings, all of which are on Zoom, and almost all. And that's been, at first it was very difficult, but I think it's worked out very well now. Everybody's adjusted and been happy and calm about it. So it varies. There's a lot of editing, and then there's a lot of telephone calls and a lot of emails, that kind of thing. I guess that's it. It's not very stunning now that I say it out loud, but I'm sure it's exciting if I were thinking about it more clearly. But yes, that's about what I do.
Thanks. Brandy, how about
Brandy, what do you know what you're doing?
It was funny. I was thinking about that question of what is my day like, and I have to start it with you're right, Lisa. My toddler, waking me up nice and early, getting my coffee ready, and then it's it's a lot of email. It's a lot of G chatting, and we try to spread out our meetings throughout the week, but probably at least one Zoom meeting a day, and a lot of just trying to stay in touch with everybody on staff. As Marianne mentioned, we've been remote since the beginning of, or mid-March, and so it's challenging in a creative environment to pick up the phone sometimes and just say, hey, what are you thinking about this project, and not just go week to week to week on each publication.
And pre-pandemic, when you all worked together, you were really hands-on and paper-centric, right? Would you print out the issue before it went to print to look it over in that?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think we did. Now, fortunately, we had really put time and energy and begun to really focus on our online publication and how to make that the daily that it's become. And that was a process that really advanced, especially in those first few weeks of the pandemic, because it was a very tough time then for everyone to adjust to it. But also we had such a strong obligation to be keeping up with every piece of information that really at that time felt, like if we got this wrong, we could really injure people. So, and everyone was having that problem. The county health was, struggling to figure out how they were going to get the information out. We were torturing them as much as we could to make them be more transparent. And they were trying, I think, in all honesty, but it was difficult. And so there was, that kind of necessary back and forth. But so that there was a great reliance on the way we were handling our web publication, and there was, I think, a real shift to understanding how to do that in a really more informative daily way, and how to restructure. So we actually had to restructure our whole system of news when I say news involves arts and all everything disappeared, but then it couldn't have completely disappeared. So we then had to go in and try to find all the, I think, heroic efforts, arts and lectures and libero, and I mean, just so many heroic efforts to continue to exist and to continue to supply the community with art and beauty and all the things that they need. So it was really a thrilling ride, those first, I'd say, Brandy, maybe that first 2 months pretty thrilling. Now that we look back, we find it thrilling at the time. I don't know if thrilling would be the first word that would come to mind, but we got through it and it was very exciting.
Brandy? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that is a good summation of what those first few months were like, which I think for a lot of, small businesses and people trying to figure out what, what it was going to be. I think even looking back now, I can't believe it's December 2nd, right? And we are in talking about, what are the next few, 6-8 weeks going to look like. So I think a lot of it has been, go a little bit forward and then breaks and having to rethink what we're doing. But yeah, it's definitely been once in a lifetime in terms of business planning and, replanning and all of that. But we're lucky we have a great team to do it with.
Yeah, you sure do. And we rely on you for that information. I was just curious about how can you leave it? Because it always seems that there's more information or there's another story to tell, or there's, you can just constantly be putting out information, but based on the size of your staff and, and the budget of working, do you have to make the choice? Has that been a big change in the last 8 months? The fact that now that it seems like an ongoing, you've got the pandemic on top of everything else that you used to do. Our member, Joan Tapper, is asking, has the way you're planning issues changed during the last 8 months, different topics, or is it important to keep the same things?
Yeah, I think I'll let Marianne speak to the specific topics, but I think a good example that I shared with you, Lisa, was on March 26th, I believe, the last Thursday of March was supposed to be our summer camp annual issue that we put out every year, right? We had our probably second largest revenue issue of the year. So something that we really depend on. And it was a quick decision in a sense of, our camp's really going to be happening. Who can we reach out to our advertisers immediately and see what their plans are? And I found myself in a lot of times trying to decide, are we going to be should we go out with this issue, or should we lead with, we're not sure what's going to be going on during the summer and maybe it's not the right time. So in March, we decided to postpone it and just kind of see what happened. And then, as we kept on going forward, it made sense to not have that issue. But we've looked at our editorial calendar as being very flexible. And even as we go into 2021, we're not setting anything, just because we've always done it, we're going to do it again. We're really thinking about it in the now, because I think the new normal is not going to be anything like it was, last year or the time before.
And how did you shift that? Because so much of the advertising, the print advertising, is events, which are not happening now, and nonprofits, which, they're not doing in-person events. So Brandy, were you already kind of shifting kind of the way that the things are being done as far as putting out more stories on the web ahead of print, or how did you manage the revenue aspect of it?
Yeah, so I don't think it's any giant surprise that ad revenue in funding journalism across the country has been in decline, right? So we have been looking at digital options, reader revenue options for a long time. And actually in January of 2020, we launched a subscription platform, not with the idea that subscription revenue will ever completely overtake ad revenue, but as another way of diversifying our revenue portfolio. We've been so lucky to be supported by our arts and nonprofit community in advertising, our largest advertisers. And so when you think the Bowl doesn't have a season, for a long time, Arts and Lectures is rethinking what they're going to do. That all, affects the advertising that was in the paper. And so it's just coming up with, not using themed issues as a way to, potentially get in front of new advertisers. But there's no doubt that we are still the best outlet in town for businesses. So it's, getting our sales team led by Sarah Sinclair, who I know is on the call here with us, and just reminding people that we're here. And it's so important, now more than ever, that we support the editorial and the news and the journalism that we are, that we're putting out both on the web and in print.
So it's unique that you're a weekly paper, you're a free paper. I mean, isn't that, and I know that you attend, like, your editorial people attend, I guess, the conferences for weekly papers, but aren't you unique in that you're really a leading source of news for Santa Barbara, and you're free, and, except for now you've started the subscribers and weekly.
I think that we're both. You had asked a question earlier about how we, with a very parsed down staff, how do we maintain information that's coming in to us on a regular basis? I think that that's what I was really trying to get at. The print publication is, is something that has been there for us all along, and that we have a very close relationship with. Our writers think about what they want to be putting in that. How do we organize it? But at the same time, at the absolute same time, which, thank God, we're very familiar with how to put out a print publication. We're not learning that. But that idea of really thinking of the paper, the print paper, as continuing on as our weekly event, but online we have to be feeding that beast all the time, because and the COVID helped us because if we didn't have the COVID, we could get lazy. I mean, the print public people are, if they can't find the print publication, they're still calling the paper and going, why can't I find one? I said, well, it's Tuesday afternoon, it's all gone. But the print publication is great, but we were able to start shifting as a news organization. We were able to make that shift and to start realizing, how do we better organize ourselves? Because we burnt ourselves out pretty quickly after the first 3 months. I mean, people were just burnt. And, I've said so many times, and I probably have said it to people here, but I am the luckiest editor certainly in the country, because we have this outstanding staff, and they work the way they work. I think Charles is on this line here. I mean, the kinds of things that people do to make the publication excellent. That is the goal. And the goal is to be able to, all of us feel, I mean, we talk about this at the different editorial meetings. We really feel we are part of the community where we live. The community is first. And through that, we find what is news. So we rely on that news understanding based on the relationship we each have to our own community. So everybody brings different experiences, which we try to meld into one publication, both online and in print. I could go on for a long time, so you should address questions to Brandy. She makes more sense. I just go on and on and on. Sorry.
Okay, so let's talk about Brandy's, let's kind of go step back because we didn't talk about your early career yet. But Brandy, you came to the Independent a long time ago. How did you start, and what has been your trajectory through the different roles that you've held at the paper?
Yeah, so I started in 2008, as you mentioned, right in March of 2008. So right as the recession was, was really starting. I had graduated from UCSB a few years before, was working retail here in town, and was really trying to find a way to stay in Santa Barbara. I fell in love almost immediately with the campus and learning about the community, and I came across a position of I think it was human resource manager / accounting assistant, and and I applied and got the job, and I was working for the CFO at the time, and it was really where I grew up. I mean, I started and met a lot of great people who have been working at the paper for a long time. And I always joke because, like you said, it's been, almost 13 years, and I still consider myself a newbie. I look around and we have, people who have been there for 30 years and really have built the paper. But with the small business, you can get into any kind of trouble you want. That's the kind of leadership that the paper's always had, really. So if we started having more collective meetings around events, or if you guys remember, in 2009-10, we did a barbecue contest and, different things that were community-driven events. And I started working more closely with editorial. And then, let's see, 2009 and probably up until 2015, I started taking over more responsibility, and basically that's how my role grew. And then in 2017, when I became publisher, for me it was a trajectory in terms of I loved what I did. I loved the business side of the paper, but I love supporting the journalists and who we worked for. So it was a way to continue to support the writers.
And Sarah, thanks to Sarah Sinclair
I-
for giving me, yeah, Marianne?
I just wanted to say that you had asked what is our routine, and our routine, a part of our routine is Brandy and I talk at least twice every day, sometimes more. And I honestly can't thank her enough. I don't know if we could have ever gotten through and expanded and survived and been successful without her leadership. So I'm really grateful. Have an opportunity to tell you that on Zoom. Imagine, Brandon.
And it's being recorded
And
too.
Sarah. Oh,
You can always play it back. Oh, well, Sarah, it was so great in providing me with some background information for tonight. And she said that they knew when you were looking to have someone else step into the publisher position that Brandy it just seemed like a no-brainer. And Sarah also
it was.
She also shared that you like to hear everyone's opinion. So you were mentioning the great staff and your team, and I think maybe both of you, Marianne, likes to hear from everyone in the room. What is it? And do you think that's a female style of leadership specifically, or that's your style that seems to work so well because it's the Independent just seems like the place to get your news from, the fun place to be. So maybe talk about the collaboration between your entire team and how you nurture that and cultivate that.
Marianne, you want to take that one?
Why is it important to hear from everyone in the room?
Well, I think both Brandy and I share that. For me, I think that's something I learned over time before I even started the Independent. because I came into journalism at a very rambunctious time in journalism. And I worked for papers that were filled with very opinionated people who were not in the more traditional mode of the daily journalism. So they had no problem whatsoever telling their editor-in-chief, how stupid I was. And so over time, that allowed me to learn to open it up more and to not be afraid of hearing what everybody I realized that if you weren't afraid and you opened it up to everyone and you got all the opinions, you were still in charge. You were still in charge. So what you so the so there was nothing to be afraid of, and you learned so much more. I mean, I was pretty young when I was doing that, and there was a lot of people much older than me who were in the room. And so I think that was oh God, that was a wonderful lesson. And once I had that lesson, I never had an unhappy day at a meeting. I may have had some obnoxious days, but I never had an unhappy day at a meeting because everyone could talk. I, of course, could talk more than anybody, as you all now see. So I'll be quiet and let Brandy follow through.
Well, I want you to talk a little bit more, though, unless Brandy has something to add to this question. I wanted to find out how you wound up in Santa Barbara. You grew up on the East Coast and worked in media. And how did you wind up in Santa Barbara? And then what inspired you to start The Independent?
Oh, well, I was, as you pointed out earlier, the editor of the Village Voice in New York, and a writer there was a man named Jim Poet. And after, as you know, a romantic and wonderful story, we fell in love. And I told him, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker, and I don't think I can ever leave New York. I was in my very early 30s. And he said, oh, of course not. As soon as we got pregnant, we were packing up our bags and moving to where his family is from, which is Santa Barbara. And it was a wonderful experience for me and live on the ranch. And, I used to say the ranch was very similar to New York City because every morning you woke up and you didn't know if you were going to get killed or not. And this was New York City in the 70s and 80s. So, and then I was able to do I had my child, and I was able to do a lot. I was very fortunate. I was able to do a lot of work, freelance and consulting work, and I was traveling around the country and taking my daughter with me, and it was easy. But then when it was time for her to go to school, it was less easy, and I realized I had a very small skill set, very small, and so it was just about putting out a publication. So it turned out that the News and Review, which was a collective alternative publication that had been started in the early 70s, was up for sale. And in a long story, two people who I knew called me and said they would back me. And that's how I got into starting the paper. And I was clear, it was a collective. I had to get their permission to sell to me. There was another person who wanted to buy it as well. And I told them, I won't fire anybody the first year, whoever is on the staff. I'm telling you, I'm an experienced editor and I should be able to make it work. So let's see what happens. And it turned out to be a unbelievably great staff. So we worked really hard, really hard. My daughter had to come and live in a little closet at the paper, and my husband had to come down and be a publisher, but we got it started. And then we merged with another paper, and that's how it became the Independent. Is that the answer to the question?
Yeah, what an incredible story, and for how many years, from 1986 to now, continuing here in this unique place in the world. Lois wanted to know what moment was the most surprising turning point at the paper? You talked a lot about the change, all of the changes and the quick transformations this year, but was there another time pre-pandemic that was a big turning point for you?
Well, when we merged, because I bought the Independent in 1984. And so when we had to merge the two two staffs, we merged the completely two staffs, no one was fired. That was a huge turning point. And I guess the second one, Lois, would be the concept of when the whole, in media, the whole technology changed, and and online publications became so important, and making that shift. I would say those were the three: that, the formation, the technology, and the pandemic.
Was it the weekly news and review? There's some chat. People remember it, and we're just wanted to. So was it called the Weekly News and Review? Was that the original name?
There were two papers. The paper that I bought was the Santa Barbara News and Review. And then there was another paper that thought the News and Review was going out. So it went weekly. And we had an old-fashioned newspaper war there for about 2 years, and then we merged.
Wow.
And we decided not to combine all those names. I didn't want to do that because that sounded like all those dailies, which were beginning to fade right then in the 80s, and they would all have these, combined names, and it all seemed sad. So let's make a new name. And so we came up with the Independent.
And so you started moving to the online subscription model pre-pandemic. Brandy, do you want to talk a little bit more about the business side of it? Where do you see it going? Are you guys being supported now? Because you would think if there was ever a time to support good journalism, this is the time to do it. Are you feeling supported? Is that working out with the subscription model, with the donation based during this time?
Yeah, so we have felt completely supported by the community. And the idea of the online subscription model is that we would charge for content, but of course, just a few months in to this model, then we come to the pandemic, and we had said at the beginning we wouldn't charge for breaking news or what we felt that was necessary for the for public safety, and that's immediately what it was. So we continued to push out for subscriptions, but didn't charge for any of the content. And we're at close to 2,200 subscribers, and we feel like that's a strong number in the amount of marketing that we've done. We feel like we are the community paper of record. So we want to be accessible to everyone, which is why print remains free and will. And we feel like the pandemic has allowed us an opportunity to, and I think someone mentioned it in the chat to really look post-pandemic, to use this time with this hunkered down staff and, focusing on the most essential things that we need to do, and start planning for what we want to be post, and that means different completely different revenue opportunities, and and having those conversations with other publishers both in the state and across the country of what we can do, because it's so important to have local news. And I think you can find examples where communities lose their local news source, and every engage or every engagement metric declines, less voters, less, less watchdog coverage and all of that.
So your COVID coverage, everyone, I'm always turning to it. That's for sure. I'm looking at it daily. The COVID coverage is drawing a lot of people. Were there other stories this year that you were surprised by that did well, or any big surprises on that front?
I don't know if surprised is where I would go, but the breaking news. One of our reporters, Tyler Hayden, started covering the Lompoc prison outbreak. He was, the first reporter on that story, and ended up in the ACLU lawsuit. A lot of his reporting is what's cited in that. And so we, although we cover the region of Santa Barbara, we have a lot of national stories that get picked up in that way. So that was really a really big story or series for us. Anything surprising, Marianne? I'm trying to think of. You never know what people are going to click on, but
I'm not you're more familiar than I am really with the analytics, but in terms of, what people are clicking onto, but I think one story, again, it was a Tyler Hayden story. One story that was surprising in that we had never done that story. And that was when, after the protests, the Black Lives Matter movement started here, Tyler had gone ahead and had tried to find out examples of police where there was violent interaction between the police and the public, and what was the result of that. Well, he found a series of stories that was open to anyone could have gotten them, and he began to publish them, go through them, re-examine them. And that was something that it hit me. Why had we not looked at that, before? So there's always that happening, right around you in your own community. And that's what makes journalism really exciting, because there's never an end and there's never not a need. And I there's just never not a need. And it's just as important that people know that there's, well, like now I'm bringing up Happier Days, but that Arts and Lectures has a movie series in the park during the summer. It's just as important that people know those things, that they know events that they can go to. We have tried to have events that people can come to, so that community sense is built. I consider that to be the most vital thing that the Santa Barbara Independent does, which is to work on holding that net, the web net underneath us, that keeps us feeling like a community. And my God, I think we're going to come through this pandemic with that feeling. And that is a miracle, because of so much isolation that people have had to experience.
Yeah, so you're the lifeline, right? As everyone's isolated, we're turning to you for the news, and you're getting, there's so much praise in the chat here about Tyler's work, and Catherine Sweeson's grateful that you bringing the plight of incarcerated people to light. And I just wanted to point out that both Tyler and Brandy were recognized with a 2016 national award from Editor and Publisher magazine. Brandy won the coveted 25 under 35 award, and so did Tyler Hayden for his incredible work. So you've got a talented team. I wanted to attend one of your backyard brunches pre-pandemic. That looked like so much fun. And you do the St. Patrick's Day march. I mean, you really do find all of these ways to bring the community.
Stroll. It's not legal. It has to be a stroll, not a march.
Stroll. Oh yeah.
We don't have permission.
Getting technical.
We don't have permission from
So, okay, so we have so many great questions in the chat. Let me go through and see what else. Carolyn we loved the Marianne's story earlier about hearing everyone's opinion, because you never had an unhappy meeting after that, and you didn't have to, you were still in charge even after you heard everyone's opinion. Let's see. What do you think your secret to success is when so much journalism is going away and the pandemic isn't helping? What do you feel is your key to success? It seems like it would be your connection with the community, but what do you think?
I think that's definitely
Brandy,
definitely it.
okay.
You know, to have Marianne as our editor, who is a founder and knows so much about Santa Barbara, it's so important. You know, that our news is local. Our so many of our staff members are gauchos. You know, we want to be here. We want to support the community, and you know, it's so. I think that's exactly exactly it, and how journalism is going to survive by being operated and owned, locally in local communities.
So anything else we want to wrap? We want to have to start to wrap up. We could go on and on. Is there anything else? What do you want to leave us with? What did you learn? What are the silver linings that Brandy mentioned coming from the pandemic, that you have a chance to regroup and come out stronger? Are there any other lessons that you've learned that we haven't covered tonight already? Silver linings.
I felt like you really asked some wonderful questions and helped, it's those things always make you think. I guess there was just one thing I wanted to say about the time that we've been in and how difficult it is to understand a community right up front. Because I can remember 35, 36 years ago, how I tried to put, a structure on Santa Barbara, whereas Santa Barbara has its own structure. And so slowly at these meetings where everybody gave their points of view, we found ways to cover, in my opinion, and since I don't have to do the work, the reporters do the work, I think I can say this without bragging, well, at least bragging about myself. The reporters cover the most extraordinary range of things. And right now we have the smaller number of reporters ever. But I also want to say, I know Starshine's on here, Charles is here. These are columnists, reporters, critics that have done so much to, Starshine and Charles, they're stars in their own fields. And because we've been here for so long, and we've been focused completely on news, to be serious in the news world. And the news is this broad thing. It's not just what's going on at City Hall or the supervisors. I think they bring, a person like Nick Welsh, he has covered journalism, covered this community for all those years. I think he is the single longest functioning. Starshine might have a better idea, but I think the longest, once Barney Brittingham retired, and we were very honored that he worked at the Independent when he left the other daily. I think Nick is the senior reporter in Santa Barbara, and he works for us. He works for this paper. And everybody asks him a question and he has a memory that's a little scary. And that whole history, knowing a whole history of where you're from for decades, I don't know that it can be replaced.
For sure. Charles, do you want to add something, or Starshine? We'd love you guys to wrap up. Charles, you're an incredible writer.
I would love to add that it has been an extraordinary privilege to work with and for these two incredible leaders, Brandy and Marianne. And thank you for doing this because, I learned some things tonight and just had a lot of fun. We really need a holiday party and you came through. So thank you for this group and for this event. It means a lot.
Thanks, Charles. Starshine?
Yeah, I'll echo the same thing. It's just a huge honor. I'm going to get all choked up. I tell the Independent every year what a huge honor it is and privilege for me to be associated with them. I'm so proud of the work that they do in the community. Nick Walsh is my hero and always will be. And just seeing all the things that people are writing I'm seriously like going to start to cry, and I'm not a crier. But just being so isolated and then just seeing how much everybody appreciates this thing that you guys create that brings everybody together is just, I think it's really moving. So thank you. And thank you for doing this and celebrating this, Lisa.
And everybody, it's not
And
just
everybody.
all of us. I mean, and Starshine, you're our huge supporter of AWC. You've been a member for so long. You're always our MC at our big Women of Achievement Awards. So we just really, and
I love this group. It's a great bunch of ladies, and Charles.
And Charles is on. It's awesome. So Marianne and Starshine are both Women of Achievement honorees. We're going to talk a little bit more about Women of Achievement later tonight. So we're just really happy to have you here. And you guys are also a big media sponsor. You're our big media sponsor for AWC. So it's because of you that we've grown our group this year. So we really thank you guys for that.
Hello, everyone, and thanks to the board and Lisa, you did a yeoman's job or a yeowoman's job, if there's such a word, for organizing this event. It's so great to gather, especially during this time of such social challenges. I want to put this wonderful moment in perspective. This is the Founders Award, and I'm so honored to be in a position where I can give this award to someone really terrific. And my remarks will be a segue to the Founders Award recipients' remarks. We have so much in common. If anybody was tracking the themes that emerged tonight from Marianne and Brandy's remarks and other things that were said in the breakout groups, we love to connect. And I want to remind people that over 100 years ago, the association was started as the Society of Women in Journalism. And it was very important to me when this group was forming that we have a strong connection to women who are journalists. So tonight meant so much to me, and I loved hearing what Marianne and Brandy had to say. And there's always the good gossip that happens for reporters when they get together at our meetings. Here's some history, and I want you to really start to connect the dots as I share this with you. And it's my prerogative because I have agency tonight in this role. I had a lovely, lively lunch conversation with two friends, Deborah Hutchison, who's a producer and now owns Gutsy Gals Inspire Me, an internet business, and Mindy Bingham, successful publisher, many years ago. And we ended up sharing a common sense of the isolation that we felt as entrepreneurs. I was a consultant. They were running businesses that were in different states. And we thought there was a need for some sort of a network of women who were in communication roles, disciplines, and sectors. We wondered if that feeling was unique to us or anyone else. And so, with a little bit of chutzpah, if you know what that word means, we decided to produce a program as a trial balloon to see if anyone else felt the same way. So we invited 35 friends, 10 plus each per each of us, to have lunch with us, Dutch treat, of course. And we asked Phyllis DiPicciotto, the founder of the Santa Barbara Film Festival, to be our speaker and talk about how she put that together. Her talk was fascinating. And by the end of the lunch, all 35 signed up to join an organization. And the funny thing was, it was an organization that did not yet exist, but they wanted to pay. They said they left us checks, and we said, well, we have to figure this out. So we did. We joined. We became a chapter of the Association for Women in Communication, and we're one of 2 West Coast chapters. So I wanted to share that story because it's another example of how ideas can get hatched during even the most meandering conversations that women friends tend to have. And I hope that tonight is only the beginning for your deeper engagement with AWCSB, because you can make it work for you. You never know what topic is going to emerge and whether there's a chance to work on a project collaboratively with some stranger you met at one of our monthly meetings. Lynn Jones, a few years ago, a former president, gave me the honor of finding a woman to honor in that same entrepreneurial spirit. And, you know, it had to be someone who had an idea and a message and took it upon herself to produce a product or service. I felt strongly this person had to be someone who would not otherwise be acknowledged or honored. Maybe someone in a, you know, outside of a formal corporate role. And rather someone who had a big idea and used her abilities and imagination to stand for something larger than herself, getting her key message out through some communication venue. Tonight, I'd like to honor the work of Beth Pitton-August, who had an idea that is particularly timely and took it upon herself to spend time and her own resources to produce a film about women's suffrage and the meaning of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, particularly now after what we've lived through in the year 2020. She gained the endorsement of the League of Women Voters, and she'll talk about that, and other individuals. And I hope that each of you will consider supporting the completion of her documentary, just the beginning. She did all this while working full-time at the UCSB Bren School as a development director. The website that features the film states, and I quote, 100 years ago in June 1919, winning the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was just the beginning for women as agents of political power. Now just think about this. Women have tremendous power at the polls. Imagine if we could all agree on one issue and lobby legislators to get something passed. Just over a month ago, October, the New York Times declared that women could decide the election, and I think they did. They would vote for Joe Biden based on President Trump's handling of COVID, the climate crisis, paychecks, the racial divide, and Roe v. Wade, to name just a few issues that emerged from a nationwide survey. And these were things that really affected women. And so this film will be inspiring to anyone, but perhaps especially younger women who have no idea what it took for women to get the vote. It's easy to be complacent, but it's helpful to take a step back and appreciate an historical perspective. Please give a high five, thumbs up, wave for Beth Pitton-August, who is using the medium of film to inspire all of us to be engaged participants in our great democracy. Thank you so much. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much, Lois. I want to show off my plaque. Such a privilege. I'm deeply honored by your kind words and grateful to receive the AWCSB Founders Award for a passion project that I first conceived of 10 years ago. In this holiday season, when we cannot safely gather in person for such an evening as this, it's a privilege to share my story and hopefully bring some cheer and some hope, even in spite of the uniquely 2020 uncertainty that enfolds us. Just the Beginning, A Century of Women's Political Power, is a feature-length documentary film that explores the past, present, and future of women's political power through the lens of the 100-year history of the League of Women Voters and allied groups. Winning the right to vote with the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 was just the beginning for women as agents of political power. The film's intentional focus on a diversity of individuals and views encourages the audience to reflect on the reality of the past, challenge its legacy in the present, and choose how we shape the future. Did you know that even with the 19th Amendment, women of color, particularly Black women, continue to be barred from casting ballots in many states, not just in the South, with tactics like poll taxes and literacy tests? Here's how the project came to be. We were celebrating the founding of the League of Women Voters and the 90th anniversary of the 19th Amendment at a special party that I helped to plan as a League board member. I was conducting brief interviews with lifetime members, women who'd been members of the League for 50 years or more. They talked about the issues that brought them to the League and kept them active and making a difference for half a century. Issues like the environment, healthcare, women's rights, voting rights, and access to nonpartisan information on ballot measures and candidates. Their stories inspired me, and I thought, these stories need to be told. The stories have evolved since then to focus on the impact of a 100-year-old organization that emerged from the suffrage movement, that keeps loyal members and continues to thrive, but is not without its complicated history of race. We also explore the growing influence of women as full citizens in suffrage and ask, what more needs to be done? Our goal remains the same: to inspire women and men to not only physically show up to vote, but to cast an informed vote by getting to know the issues, and then to get involved in order to make a difference on issues that they care about. I've been a nonprofit fundraiser for more than 20 years. While I've always loved documentary film and recognized it as a powerful medium to open up dialogue, I'm not a professional filmmaker. At the time, back in 2010, I had no idea how long it would take, how much it would cost, or the personal toll it would take on me as I undertook such an ambitious project. But I couldn't get the idea of a documentary out of my mind, especially one about women's impact since suffrage. Every time I pitched the idea to people I met, and even friends of mine in the media and film business, they would say something like, "What a great idea. Good luck with that." It took about 5 years to find a professional filmmaking partner, someone who could help me create a film with a high level of professional quality. And it happened through serendipity. I attended a workshop at Pacifica Graduate Institute called Your Story Accelerator with Dr. Theon Gordon, where over a long weekend, each participant focused on a single project or idea, learned how to develop our story around the project, identify the roles and team members required to achieve our project goals, and develop a pitch. On the last day, each of us stood and pitched our story. When I was finished, Theon herself and her friend, Edward C. Bartell II, who was there filming the workshop, both said that they loved the idea and they said they would help me make it happen. That was it. Ed has been my technical producer and so much more ever since then. And Dr. Theon Gordon has remained involved. I like to call her the godmother of our film. Our first day of shooting was at the Women's March in Los Angeles, the day after the inauguration in 2017. I was on one of those WPC buses. We've been shooting and developing our story slowly but steadily ever since. One of our biggest breaks came when LWUS office provided us with the names and contact info for all of the League leaders who were converging on Chicago for the National Convention in 2018. We interviewed 19 League presidents from across the country in 3 days. Today, we're within striking distance of completing the film in 2021. Yes, that's a year later than we hoped, as we were aiming to premiere to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and the founding of the League. But like so much in 2020, we're working within the confines of COVID-19 and adjusting our plans accordingly. What's kept me going? Well, all of the people that I've met along the way and had the privilege of interviewing. My friends, family, and my husband have supported me. My friends and colleagues in the Santa Barbara League of Women Voters and other chapters across the state and the country were critical. The Santa Barbara Women's Political Committee and Democratic Women of Santa Barbara County have supported the project since 2018. I've had the privilege to assemble and pay for a professional team through the generous support of donors. I couldn't have come this far without the participation of these individuals and groups. Now more than ever, this film is a call to action. In the year 2020, 100 years after the 19th Amendment and 55 years after the Voting Rights Act, people were forced to stand in line for as much as 10 hours, often in the rain and cold, and during a pandemic. And why were those long lines in primarily working class, low income, and communities of color, especially Black communities? People of color will be the primary source of the US labor force in 2032, and they know that so much is at stake. One Black woman in Georgia, who's a mother of 2 boys, said, "To me, some people say we're voting for your life. I'm voting to change this country. I want my voice to be heard." She waited for 9 hours and 40 minutes to cast her vote. And indeed, Black women had a huge influence on the outcome of this election. And we have the first Black woman and first Asian woman elected to the vice presidency. We must continue the fight for the right to vote and help people become informed and civically engaged beyond the voting booth. Plus, we must get more women and feminist women elected. Elections are just the beginning for all of us to shape policy and hold government accountable. Do you have a message you want to share, a group you want to honor, a story you want to tell? I encourage each of you to honor the big ideas that you have, those that you just can't shake. You don't have to go it alone. Find someone who says, "If you want to do this, I will help you." You don't even need to be technically able to do it yourself. Just as I did, find your godmother, then a partner who believes in you, and build your team. Thank you again, Lois, for this wonderful honor. Friends and members of AWCSB, feel free to reach out if you'd like to learn more about this work in progress. And happy holidays to everyone.